Hello and welcome to the Porcelain channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Hello, and as I said, this is my spoiler-free review of The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Now, this is a book that I've avoided for a number of years. I'm one of those geeks that reads lists online a lot. I don't know why. Maybe I need other people's opinions. I don't often listen to them, in fact, because I often disagree with many of the lists, but yeah, I keep going back to them for some reason. But this book is always on the list of, you know, adult fantasy or recommended fantasy or books you probably haven't read that are great. And for some reason, kept negating it. I kept looking at the cover or reading the blurb and thinking, eh, seems a bit dry. Or, I don't know, not for me, perhaps. In the end, I must have read a different blurb or a different description, and it spoke to me at that time. And I ended up reading it. And I'm glad that I did, because it's really, really enjoyable. So it centers on a young genius level boy who is in New York, somewhat of a loner, has some sort of social anxiety or social handicap, and I'm not sure if he's socially handicapped or if he's just a teenager. You know, he finds life extremely difficult as a hormonal male, uh, pubescent male genius, which I wasn't a genius, but I was a pubescent male, and it was very difficult. So I can relate very much to that. And he, through hook or by crook, through a different sort of set of events, he ends up going to a magical academy. And you'll probably, if you've seen any other reviews for this book, they've probably mentioned Harry Potter. And I am going to stay true to the tropes, and I'm going to mention Harry Potter too, so I apologize in advance if you've heard this before. But the easiest and laziest way to describe it would be Harry Potter for adults. Or if Harry Potter took place in the real world. Something like that. Just because it is a lot more realist. You know, it is a magical academy, so there is that fantastical element, obviously. But the very dry nature of the prose and the very taciturn and moody and horny nature of the main character just gave it a realism to me. As you know, as I said, as somebody who was a pubescent boy, it just had, like, the main character is going through a stressful time, and then he notices the cleavage of one of the people who are there, and that, you know, he enjoys it. And I don't want it to make it sound sort of smutty or anything like that, but just that little aspect made me think, okay, this is more realistic, because, you know, when you're a teenager, you're just horny dialed up to 11, and this has that without being, you know, it's not about sex, it's not about sex, but just those little lines make it seem more real. And there's many other ways that it seems more real, you know, the social anxiety, you know, the not really knowing your place, the not knowing how you feel about people, not knowing, just being unsure of everything, whilst having to make the biggest decisions of your lives, you know. Yeah, but the world is very, very mundane, and not in a bad sense. And I think that's mostly due to the author wanting to keep it quite real, and the prose being quite dry. What I mean with that is, it's not, even though it's magical and there's a lot of magic and fantastical things going on, the author keeps it, like, there's no floral exposition, there's no um, emotional dumps. There's no uh, adventurous risk-taking prose. It's all quite dry and formulaic and descriptive, but in a very, very well-written way that adds to the story, which makes it seem like it's more mature. Um, the characters are quite interesting too. There's nobody there's no Gandalf, there's no Dumbledore. It's more characters that you would get in a novel. Realistic characters with the strengths and the weaknesses and the interpersonal drama. Um, and that's really, as a huge fantasy fan, the fact that this wasn't very fantastical was something that I really enjoyed about it. It was a new approach to the sort of magical realism genre, at least from what I've read. I'm not a huge buff in the magical realism genre, but I found this to be very, very well handled and a somewhat novel approach, at least from, as I said, from what I've read. Um, I found the pacing to be very uh, slow, but without being plodding, in the sense that it would slowly, there was, it felt like a long book, and it felt like it was building up very slowly, little by little, and I enjoyed it. It made it feel like school, because it takes place in school. It makes you feel like it's school with, you know, long. I don't want to say repetitive because it makes it sound like I'm trying to be kind and not say it's boring, but it's not boring. It's very, very engaging. Um, and just the way it's paced meant that uh, it did carry me along and it did keep me interested, even though it did feel quite long. Um, so this book, who would I recommend it to? I'd recommend it to most people who, like me, have read a lot of fantasy and are looking for something similar but different without straying too far from their comfort zone. Uh, People who loved Harry Potter when they were a child, I think they will enjoy seeing a different take on the same theme, because Harry Potter is very, wholesome and hopeful, and everyone's great, and it's quite innocent. Even though there are dark themes, it's quite. I mean, it's very innocent. It's a children's book, um, and lots of people love it as a children's book, and so they should. This, for a children's book, the story is very engaging. And if you like that as a kid, like I'm telling you what to do. I think you may enjoy this, but just because they're clearly parallels, but this has a lot more depth to it and a lot more realism, and it doesn't grip you as much because it's not as fast paced, but it does make you think more, and you can relate to it more, which I found very, very agreeable. Um, Also, non-fantasy fans, I think, people who read maybe novels. This could be a gateway drug to get them into fantasy books, because there is subtle magical elements, but it's mostly, you know, slice of life. If you know what that genre is, it's very much day-to-day activities and interpersonal relations with a little magical sprinkling on the top. And I don't know, the tone of it too. The tone of it I found really enjoyable. It made me think of uh, like New York intelligentsia films from maybe the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, something like that. And it just has this, yes, I'm super smart, you're super smart, we're all super smart, let's be super smart together and do incredible things, but without being, arrogant or dismissive of others. I found it really, really good, actually. Really, really enjoyed reading it. I'm glad I read it, and I would recommend it to most people, actually. So thank you for stopping by for this review. If you've read the book, I'd love to know what you think, so please comment down below. If you haven't read it, don't be like me and put it off for 15 years or whatever. It is actually really, really good. Um, a slow burn, but really, really interesting. As always, please like, subscribe, let me know what you think of this review, let me know what I should review next, and thank you so much for stopping by. Bye bye.